Hi, so today we're here with World History Encyclopedia owner Jan. How's it, Jan? How are you doing?
Very good, very good. I'm excited to be here.
Fantastic. Brilliant to have you here as well. I think everything that we spoke about with encyclopedias and what you're doing, especially in the new kind of age that we're going in, is really interesting. And I think business owners can really learn a lot from how you're staying positive and how you're finding gaps. Firstly, let's get into World History Encyclopedia. How exactly did you find what is it? Like, I know we had a conversation about you finding a perfect triangle. Tell us a little bit about that.
World History Encyclopedia is probably the most read history publication there is, certainly in terms of numbers of readers, because we are online, we are free, and we are consulted by millions of people every month. We are run as a nonprofit organization since the beginning, pretty much. So essentially, our goal is not to make tons of money. Our goal is to essentially bring history education to people all around the world, no matter of their economic status or their wealth, their education level. We really want history education to be accessible to absolutely everybody because we believe that history is extremely important, not just to understanding the present, but also to building a better future. And so, yeah, we are now available in 42 languages and we are, consulted all over the world, used in schools, universities, etc.
That is beautiful. I think what you've built here is really something very interesting, and I love your passion for history. And
Thank you.
I think you're 100% right. Like, if you don't know what the history is, like, I don't want to say that age old adage that you're bound to repeat it, but yeah, I think history is a really interesting, and it's a really vital skill and a vital importance for people to know what
Yes,
actually happened.
absolutely. And I think history amongst sort of the academic disciplines is unique in the sense that it really teaches critical thinking and the questioning and understanding of sources and the intentions of sources more than any other sort of thing that you might learn in school, right? So essentially, history is actually important for a functioning democracy, or the study of history is, because not only do we need to know where we come from to understand where we are now, but also the study of history helps us with critical thinking. It teaches students how to discern bias in sources, how to discern the interests that the people who wrote certain things might have had, and how that then influences politics. So essentially, in an age that we live in right now, where misinformation seems to be everywhere on the internet, politicians are using history and other information for ideological purposes, misrepresent things, fake news, right? And now we have AI flooding all the social media channels. It's actually really important, more than probably, well, I don't want to say ever, but more than certainly in the last 10, 20 years, to critically question what is it that I'm consuming here on my TikTok feed or Instagram feed. What are the motivations of this person, and how does it maybe relate to politics or other things that are going on in the world? And so, yeah, the study of history is something that really can help people with that and help students build that skill, basically.
That is beautiful. And the fact that it's freely available to everyone. I know we had a conversation about World History Encyclopedia is different to Wikipedia.
Mm,
It's also different to like a Britannica. Like,
yeah.
how does it differ from those two?
Right. So, I mean, essentially, World History Encyclopedia is placed in this sort of triangle, let's say. So, on the one hand, we have Wikipedia, which is free, fantastic resource, but anybody can edit it. And, there are sometimes, certain issues with accuracy because of that. Particularly when we launched in like the late thousands, that was certainly the case. It's gotten a lot better. But in like the more fringe topics, there's still sometimes questionable information found, of course. And I don't want to claim that we are never without fault. Every human makes mistakes, right? No matter how many editors you have review a piece. But we do believe that editorial review is really important, and it certainly helps with keeping the information controlled and fact checked. So that's the one part of that triangle. The other part is, for example, Britannica. It's obviously an excellent publication with a very solid reputation. The downside of it, though, is that it is not free. Many schools pay thousands of dollars every year to gain access to Britannica for their students. As an individual, I can buy individual subscriptions as well, of course. So great resource, but you need to have the means to access it. And then you have academic websites. So either they are academic journals or just general academic databases. And they are either often far too complex for, let's say, a high school student or the general public, and far too specialized. They don't give you like that general overview that you might need. Or very often academic journals are also ridiculously expensive to access because of institutional subscriptions that university libraries might have. So if you're not associated with university library, you might not be able to access that information at all. So we position ourselves essentially in the center of this triangle, and we are free, we are carefully reviewed, and we adhere to academic standards. So that's kind of how World History Encyclopedia positions itself.
Oh, beautiful. And yeah, it's also readable by the average public, and you don't need
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
a
We always
become.
like to say that story is actually the key part of the word history. So we try to make it engaging, to make it something that people, want to read. And many people do. We have many history enthusiasts who just love reading our articles. Some of our writers actually have like fans. So that's quite funny.
That is fantastic. I love it. And is that also the reason why you decided to start it, or how did you get started down this? Because obviously it's quite a new publication. It's new, but it's the late 2000s.
Yeah.
How did you get started? How did you see that this is the gap that needs to be filled?
So at the time, so yeah, 2008, when I started working on it, I was working in games. I was a game designer, and I was working on historical strategy games, the Total War series to be precise. And I did a lot of historical research for these games, going into various details about all sorts of cultures and historical, events, people, etc. And I realized that there was essentially this gap that we talked about in this triangle, that was just missing. And so I was like, well, I kind of want to, improve my programming and maybe make a website and let's see what happens. And it was like a hobby project. So I had like a little laptop, and I was commuting on the train to work, and I would then on the laptop, I installed a web server and everything. So I was programming the website on my train journey home, every day, and for like half a year or so, I think. And then, or a year actually, I think. Yeah. And then we launched like officially in 2009, where I had inherited some money at that time. So I took some of that money and paid for the first 100 contributions to the website, because I realized that trying to write the first few definitions and articles, I was like, this is a lot of work. First thing I learned. Second thing is it's actually quite hard. And the third thing I learned is I'm really not enjoying doing this part. So I thought, let's find some people to do this who are better at it and who enjoy it. And some of the people who I paid initially, they just stayed on because they liked doing it. They believed in the mission, and they saw that it was going somewhere, because it just kept growing organically through search, essentially.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, going from that to where you are now, the most read published, that's a massive leap.
It took a long time though. So I think this is something as well that very often you hear of certain success stories, and it sounds like it just happened. It didn't. So I was working on this just for fun as a volunteer for 10 years before I was employed. So I quit my job full time and worked for WHG in 2018. I was not the first employee. We had our first employee in 2016, but it took a long time. And I think one of the lessons I learned is that, if you just rely on build it and people will come, then it does take a long time. So I think had I had personally maybe a little bit more background in marketing, it probably would have grown faster.
But it took longer, but at least you got there. I
Yeah.
love the fact that you kept on, because it definitely is something that the world needs. Who would you say is your two biggest user groups that benefit the most from your publication?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of have three user groups really, but we have the history enthusiasts who just love history. They come to our website because they like what we do, what we write, and they just like reading about it. Then we have the second biggest group is the students. they don't necessarily come to our website because they want to, but because they have to, either because their teacher tells them, like, I don't know, go to our website, read this article and write an essay about this question. That happens a lot. Or because they have some homework assignment and they're Googling for an answer and they happen to come upon our website. And then the third big user group that we have is actually teachers. A lot of teachers in schools, particularly in the United States, but all over the world, they actually use our websites to prepare their lessons. Just using our encyclopedia articles to get sort of the background information, to get like a rundown of, what's the history that I have to teach tomorrow, sort of thing. But we also publish teaching materials that they can just download, print, and just run with it as well. So it's a little bit mix of those two for the teachers.
Jeez, that sounds obviously, with you being the recommended reading by so many teachers and so many
Mm.
schools, how do you keep that quality? Because I know you're also recommended by Oxford.
Mm.
How do you keep that quality that high?
Well, I mean, the key is for us, of course, that everything we publish is reviewed beforehand by our editorial team, who consists of like full-time staff who are historians, with a background in editing and publishing as well. So that I think is the key. But the other thing that we have is we've built our own content management system. So the entire website is custom built. It's not like a WordPress website or something like that. A lot of the things that essentially make the website work, like interlinkages between articles, inserting images into articles, having recommended reading, the bibliographies, linking the books in the bibliography to Amazon, and all of those things. They essentially sort of happen automatically. So the author submits the article and the bibliography, and then basically our content management system does the rest. So it dynamically inserts the links. That the editors can very quickly grab images that are already on the website and insert them or upload new ones, of course. And so we managed to do all of this with a very lean team. We're just 12 employees and not all of those in editing, um, and essentially it's a lot of that automation that allows us to keep this website going and growing, because also whenever a new article is published, all of the old articles that somehow relate to it automatically get updated with links to the new article, things like that. That really helps. And it saves our editors a lot of time that I think in many other publications where there's a lot more manual work involved would simply mean that the editors are a little bit overloaded.
Yeah, 100%. As you were saying that, it just dawned on me like the SEO for all of that should take you ages if you have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of articles to backlink all of those in with each other. Like, it really helps that you started off with web development and then
Yeah,
launched this on top of that.
it's true. Yeah, and you mentioned SEO. I mean, the website was built essentially with SEO in mind from pretty much the beginning. And I was new to this in 2008 when I started working on it. And, I bought like website magazines like in paper back then, and learned essentially from there and the articles on the internet about technical SEO and all of those things. And yeah, over the years, obviously, we updated, we expanded. We have all these JSON LD taxonomies that also get automatically created. Our editors just have to search for like a Wikidata link, and then it grabs all of the information from Wikidata and puts it into the JSON LD, and it's all connected so that Google can understand what the concept is that this article is about and all of those things. So yeah, it's quite technical in the end, but there is a lot of human expertise behind it as well, which is on the editorial side, because the knowledge of all the history in order to verify that it's correct, it's something the machine I think can't really do. Maybe one day AI can, but I don't think it can yet.
100%. Geez, it sounds like there's a lot of effort that goes into this that you don't necessarily think about. Obviously, you're getting a lot of traffic from Google, but what other revenue sources do you have for the publication?
Yeah, I mean, so for us at the moment, Google traffic is sort of the most important thing that we have. And that's also one of the big risk factors, which we might talk about in a minute or two. But so traffic basically gets us ad revenue. So that's kind of our primary source of revenue, just ads on our website multiplied by the number of people who visit our website. Then the other thing we have is we have a membership program, which is essentially like a subscription of a recurring donation, and the members get some benefits like a little monthly magazine. We have about to this month, we're actually going to start lectures by historians. So we'll have one sort of members lecture per month, digitally recorded, obviously, not in person, but about some sort of new research in historiography or archaeology. So that is something that's coming now. And then these members, yeah, as I said, it's recurring. So that sort of stabilizes our revenue a bit because, for example, right now, it's summer at this time of recording. Most schools in most countries in the Northern Hemisphere are in summer holidays. So fewer students will visit our website, which means our revenues are way down compared to, say, I don't know, September, you know? So the membership really stabilizes that revenue. And then we also have donations. So we run donation and fundraising campaigns a few times a year. We're going to launch one later in a month's time, roughly, to fund the creation of a mobile app. So those are things where we just gather some additional revenue through fundraising as well. So those three are essentially the revenue strategies that we have. But yeah, there's a strong reliance currently on Google, which, given the trends that we're seeing, is a bit of a problem.
Yes, 100%. And that's definitely something we're going to get into with a little bit of AI and all of that kind of stuff. But I know you're starting to get some traffic from, or decent traffic from, like AI sources.
Yeah, we are getting some traffic. We're seeing a lot of growth in that traffic. So we get a lot of traffic from ChatGPT, probably simply by virtue of ChatGPT being the most used AI chatbot there is at the moment. We're also getting decent traffic from Perplexity, with whom we've signed a partnership agreement. And we are also partnered with Gist AI, which is one of the smaller players, but we hope that they will also keep growing. Now, I'm saying there's a lot of growth and that sounds fantastic. Unfortunately, compared to Google, it's still a drop in the ocean. So it doesn't really matter comparatively yet. But I think the thing that we're seeing in terms of the growth trajectory of AI is that more and more AI usage compared to search usage. The downside is that even though we get cited a lot by AI, maybe not even cited, but I mean, it has ingested all our data already and it's definitely using it, whether it cites it or not. The number of people who will actually click through to the source to read the article on our website is infinitesimally smaller than what would be the case with a Google search. So we are actually not seeing a lot of traffic from AI compared to how much AI uses our content. And we have data for that as well. It's, I mean, we use Tollbit, which is a company that can block AI, but also mainly measures how many times AI basically takes our content and how much traffic we get from AI. And so the ratio that we see there is very different from the ratio that we see with.
Yeah, I can imagine because it takes all your data and then puts it in context. And only if someone asks the wrong question or they want to verify will they actually click through. So it's not really the source where they get their information from, which is a
No,
little bit
sure.
worrying.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also, it depends on the context, of course. So, a student will probably not be allowed to cite ChatGPT in an essay, even though they probably write half their essays with ChatGPT as well, which obviously they shouldn't. But, in an educational setting, at least, I think AI is still a tool that isn't being relied upon. So I think in an educational setting, a lot of students will go to us either via an AI search or Google search, doesn't really matter because sort of they have to check the information. But I think if some random person is searching up some information on the internet, I don't know, what date was Rome founded, the AI will be like, oh, 7 BC, but maybe not, archaeological discussions, then that'll probably for 90% of the people be enough. They'll be like, oh yeah, okay, that's all I wanted to know. And, bye. I don't care where that information came from. It's probably good enough. And so I think that's something that we're seeing also with Google AI overviews, that when Google AI overviews came in, we saw a big decrease in the number of visitors we got from Google. And we use various SEO softwares to track where we rank. And we've seen that in some Google updates, we might have increased our rank from like 5 to 1 in the search results, but we still lost traffic for a specific keyword because an AI overview came in on top that then answered whatever that keyword's question was. And so it's certainly something that we are looking at the moment to essentially say, okay, well, AI and how AI is essentially changing the internet by changing the way people retrieve information means that we also need to change how we do our business.
I love that. I love that you're seeing what's coming and not sitting and feeling sorry for yourself, for lack of a better way of expressing it, but
True.
actually taking it on and going, cool, if we can't do that, if this is the reality, let's look at what we can do. And I think one of the things that we spoke about that really was really interesting to me is the concept of liquid content that you spoke about. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so liquid content is not my invention. It was somebody on Medium that came up with the term. Unfortunately, I don't remember who it was, and I couldn't find the article before this call. But so yeah, liquid content, the idea essentially is to say, well, when you create a piece of content, and for us, the base content is always the historical articles that our researchers have written. That article can then be transformed into many different things. And one of the things is very straightforward and easy is you can take that article and turn that into an audio article. So you could either have a voice actor read it out, or nowadays AI is very good by now at reading content in a non-drony, boring way. And so, we have an AI audio player on our website that reads out every article we publish. And that could then also be turned into a podcast, maybe, even though we think it's sort of ethically weird to put AI into a podcast, so we're not doing that. But another thing that we do is obviously we take every one of our articles, and then our social media team takes some images and information from this article and puts it into social media posts so that it reaches a different audience in a light sort of format. Another way you could transform that content is, for example, we're just testing this actually to see what the reaction is. So far, it seems like people like it. Some people don't. Most people seem to like it. So for biographies of historical people on our website, we take a historical painting of that person, for example. Then we have AI summarize that article that we have on our website in the voice of that person. So let's say, I don't know, Queen Anne of England was the first one we tried. We had the biography of Queen Anne, and I had AI summarize it sort of in her voice as she might narrate her life to somebody. And then the AI takes the portrait photo, which is in the public domain, and animates it as if she's moving and talking. And we posted that on Instagram. So, that's something that many people liked. And we're trying a few others now, so we're seeing how that sticks. So yeah, there are many different ways that we can take existing content and repackaging it. And one of the ways that we're taking it as well, I think, and this is something that might be surprising, is we are actually going to print. So, I mean, I don't know, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, maybe, publishers were really struggling to adapt to an online world, right? And we're saying, well, we have all this content. People still love books. People don't really buy books because the content in books is unique. That's at least for nonfiction, let's be honest, everything is out there on the internet, right? But in a book, it's nicely packaged and it's collated in this collection of information that just fits together and makes sense in that package. And so we're saying, okay, let's do that with the thousands of articles that we have on our website. We can take them, repackage them in book format, and publish history books about specific topics. So the first one we do is about transformation and change of the world in the 14th century. So the medieval big transformation that sort of occurred all over the world, Black Death, these kind of things. So that's happening at the moment. So we're very curious to see how our foray into print goes, and we'll become a print publisher.
That is beautiful. Yeah, 100%. Like behind you, you can't have a bookshelf in the digital age. Like you can't highlight your screen. Well, you
Yes.
probably could, but there's a big difference between making a little note and having a bookmark and having the physical thing there. So, how many books are you planning on publishing, or will it just be the one to kind of test the waters?
Well, I mean, we don't quite know yet, but I think given the speed at which we are currently progressing with the book that we are test the pilot, let's say, we can probably do like 2 books a year or something like that, maybe 3. If we see this as a success, if we streamline our processes a little bit more, maybe more. But I think that's kind of what we're looking at the moment. And because we have this community of people who are like members and donors and people on a newsletter, we actually can talk to our audience and ask them, what do you want? Do you like this? What would you like us to change? So we're actually in this, in this conversation with our audience to see what they want. I mean, I did not think that a book about the 14th century would be what people love, but it does seem to be that this is what our audience likes. We published a map about the 14th century on social media, and that went completely viral. So, it's good to ask your audience what they want because it might not be what you think.
That is wonderful. There's so many things jumping out at me just with that statement. One of it is that I think you're doing an amazing job with your socials and using that to listen to your audience. I think a lot of people miss that social media is effectively your biggest research tool in the world because you can reach anyone that you want and see what their engagement are with, like, a lot of people will tell you that they like certain things, but if you show it to them, will they really click on it? And obviously, you can take that to the next extent. Like, if they click, will they actually buy? But that is perfect. At the very least, it gives you a direction. Because, like you said, it's the last thing that 14th century. Like, that's not where my mind would have gone. My mind would have gone, like, maybe putting certain sections together, like explaining a certain movement,
Mhm.
maybe categorizing that into a nice little package. But yeah, it sounds interesting, and I love that you're constantly moving forward and reinventing history. It's beautiful.
Yeah, but I mean, we're not reinventing history. I hope that that's not a quote that'll end up in the news. But, we do try to present the current scholarly consensus. But I think we are reinventing how history is published, essentially, because obviously there are many, traditional ways in which history is published. So, for example, if I think about, let's say, an academic, a historian who has researched something and they want to write a book about it, they will go to a sort of traditional publisher who will then publish it. And that will be shipped to a few, 100 university libraries with like 1 or 2 copies, maybe. Most print runs for history books are really small. It's like a few thousand copies worldwide. And so, the authors don't really get much money for it because it's just a few thousand copies. The books are really expensive because they need to make it worth it with a few thousand copies. And so it's not really a big win. I mean, there are these exceptions, of course, like these blockbuster books by Mary Beard or Noah Yuval Harari, *Sapiens*. That exists as well. But for most academics, their books don't actually get a lot of readers. So, and this is something that I've been thinking about maybe long term as well. This is something that we could change. We could say, yes, we will publish your book, but your information will also be available on the website forever, and you will maybe get royalties on the advertising we generate on those articles or something like that. Maybe it could become a much more long-term and equitable way of publishing history. But this is future stuff. I don't know. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe not. Those are just some ideas that are floating around in my head.
I'm going to say it again. I just love the way that you're constantly thinking of new ways to incorporate instead of going, well, this is what we've always done, so this is what we're going to keep doing.
Right. I think this is what we've always done, at least for anybody who works in publishing, is over. I think the world of publishing and the world of the way people interact with publications and the way people consume information is going to change even more dramatically now with AI. And I think there's a historical trend there as well. If we think about it, let's just think about it. Let's think about music. I like thinking about music because it's really easy and it used to be in the news. So we used to buy albums, and we used to listen to an album on a CD or a vinyl before that, obviously, front to back. And then we had MP3s, and people were no longer consuming the entire album, they were consuming just one song, and they were shuffling songs from all different artists together. Then we have social media, and people clip together, 30 seconds of songs, and it's even more mixed together. And the same thing is essentially, I think, happening with publications. We used to buy paper magazines, and we would used to consume them front to cover. Now, on the internet, we have like our Google Discover feed or Google News or whatever you use to go around and find what you want to read. But you don't read a whole publication anymore. You read like one article from this publication and two articles from that publication. And I think with AI, we're not even going to read articles anymore. We're going to read fragments of articles, and they get re-glued together. I think there has so much change happening, we don't even know where it's going yet.
That is, yeah, the only thing we know is it's changing.
Yeah, and I think we need to be on our toes, and we need to really pay attention to how the internet is changing. I think the entire internet, anything we know about the internet right now may not be true in 5 years' time. I don't
Yeah,
know if online shopping will be a thing, or if we'll just tell our AI to be like, hey, get me a blue dress that fits me and that is good for a cocktail party, and here's my credit card. I don't know. Maybe this is how people will do online shopping in the future. It could be so different. I don't know.
yeah, no, 100%. I see that future is definitely happening. Like, I'm putting money on that future in the next 3 to 5 years.
I
And
think so.
then we're
Yeah.
not even talking about the infrastructure and how Web 2 is going to evolve to Web 3 and all of that changes, that implications, that, yeah, that's going to
Yeah.
be crazy.
Yeah, I've heard talk about the agentic web, essentially, right? Where websites are no longer built for humans as the primary consumer, but actually for AI agents as the primary consumer. I think we'll need to find new payment methods of how do people pay for content. And AI somehow needs to pay for the content it uses, because otherwise there will be no more publications. Because
Yeah,
if everybody goes bankrupt because AI doesn't pay anybody and nobody reads the publication anymore, which is like the worst dark future there could be, and I don't think we'll end up there, at least not anytime soon. But for many publications, including ours, that is certainly something we want to consider. It's a threat that is there, and I think it is just important for everybody to realize that AI is changing the entire economic model of what publishing on the internet used to be. And we need to find a new model. I'm sure we will. We just need to get through this phase of uncertainty.
that is beautiful. And talking about economics, I think that makes a perfect segue. If you were speaking with a major donor, like, what would your 30-second pitch be to them?
Right. Well, I mean, I would say that, at the moment, we see that more and more around the world, education budgets are being cut, right? So we've seen it in the United States quite recently, but it's the same in Europe. It's the same pretty much everywhere. And many of these cuts are being made in the social sciences and the humanities, history, obviously, but also other subjects in that sense. So, what we offer is we're a World History Encyclopedia. It's essentially a free alternative to these expensive subscriptions schools often pay to access resources, be it Encyclopedia Britannica or be it World Book or any other such databases that provide resources for students to learn. And, we provide this for free. We provide it in 42 languages all around the world. And, as I said before, history is really important. It's being misused by politicians. It's misused and misrepresented on social media for ideological purposes often. And we need good history education as a solid basis for democracy. People need to know how to critically analyze sources, to understand the intentions of what they are seeing on TikTok or anywhere really. So yeah, I like to say we study the past so that we understand the present, and then we can build a better future.
Fantastic. And obviously, I'm going to, all the details to get a hold of you. If there's any donors, like, it'll be, the team will put those links underneath the videos.
And that would be fantastic, of course, yes.
Beautiful. I think one last thing, just with everything that you've been doing and how you got started, if there's a business owner that's thinking of not using ad traffic as the major source of getting out to their users and wanting to shift to that direct to user kind of model, what would your advice be to them?
First of all, I would say that at this point in time, that is the right way to think about it. I don't think right now, if I were to start a new online publication, I think that the model of scale that we are operating on still, and that publications have operated on for the last 20 years online, where you need millions of users to make enough money with ads to then pay for making the content that get more users. That model is certainly in question right now. There is a different model that is, you don't have millions of users, but maybe tens of thousands, right? But that's a very different business. And so I would say, yes, if you want to do this, if you want to create a new online publication, right now, aim for a model where you have a small community of paying users, not an ad supported community. Certainly you can get ads, you can get sponsors, but I think Substack, for example, is one of the success stories of the last year or two. Many journalists have decided, well, you know what? I'm not going to work for newspaper XYZ anymore. I'm just going to write my own newsletter on Substack. And many journalists are making a living with that. Obviously, you can't just write a newsletter and hope people come. You need to sort of get the word out there. And that's hard when you don't have a platform already of people who know who you are, maybe, or something like that. I think, yeah, things like what we're doing right now, podcasts. Podcasts are, in a way, a promotional method for both us and for you, right? That's a good way to get the word out. And I think, in general, yes, the mistake we made in the beginning is we didn't invest into marketing, just invested into SEO, into search engines, finding us, using us. Yeah, that's probably not the model right now to go down. um, it may be again in the future. I don't know. We'll see. But right now, that's maybe a question of decision. So yeah, you have to invest in marketing, either time or money, essentially, right?
Yeah, I love that. That's usually what I tell people as well. Like there's so many people that's out there that goes, "Yeah, but I can do this for free." And it's like, "Yeah, you can do it for free, but how much time is it going to take you?" Like you're
Absolutely.
always paying. Even if it's free, you're paying with time.
Hmm.
If it's not free, you're gaining time. Like
Yeah.
that's essentially the revenue.
Absolutely. And I mean, there are some things that are free as well, that like collaborations, mutually beneficial promotions between similar publications or influencers, creators, whatever you want to create or be or build. I think another thing that's really important is people tend to be happy to work together. And of course, I can't be a newbie and go to like the number one YouTuber in the world and expect that they will feature me. No. But if you find people who are in a similar niche, who are, um, you know, at a similar size, I think it's quite easy to find collaborations, and so to do sort of cross promotions and cross branding in that sense as well. Because yeah, I think in the end it's all about branding nowadays. It's you People need to think of your brand, whether that's like your name, the name of your publication, the name of your business, doesn't really matter. But as long as people know who you are and what you stand for and remember it, then you have a much better chance than if you just do something anonymous.
That is beautiful. That is a golden nugget worth everything. I think that is amazing. Jan, thank you so much for your time. Is there any other parting wisdom that you would give to someone maybe looking, or someone that's a little bit afraid of what AI is going to do? If they're sitting there going, I don't really know what to do because AI is coming. So yeah, I know your mindset and everything is amazing around this, and I just want to squeeze as much as I can from it.
Well, I think it's true. AI is coming and we don't know what's coming. It's hard to know. But I think it means right now there's a lot of opportunity if you have a great idea that somehow revolves either around AI itself or is adjacent to it in some way, to adapt to this new world of AI that let's be honest, not everybody likes that idea either. So I think there is also a space for anti-AI in a way, more authentic human experiences or connections. I don't know. We're seeing with social media as well. I mean, I think social media, when it first started, was all about human connections. And now it's not really anymore. We just get bombarded with brands and ads and influencers that are peddling who knows what. But it's not about me and my friends anymore. It's more like TV. And the similar thing happened with the internet, I feel. The internet, the promise of the internet in the early 2000s was like democratization of information and communication and so on. But in the end, what we're seeing is that, we've got these big tech companies that are essentially controlling the entire flow of information. And even more so with AI, right? Means that, yeah, if people use AI to consume information, then whoever controls the AI controls the flow of information. So I think there is certainly a space for somewhat contrarian ideas that might also go against that flow. Don't know what they are. I would probably jump on it if I did. But if you have a great idea that is anti-AI, that might work too. I really don't know. And I can't say that I know what's coming. I think there are so many possibilities. And it's just important to not just think about what's here right now, but to think about what's next. How will the world look like in 5 years? And stay on the trends and tap the feel of the internet or of society, really. Yeah, it's like, yeah.
That is beautiful. It's something I would have never thought of. I love that. Jan, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute joy working with you and chatting with you. I think if anyone wants to get in contact with you, like I said, we'll make sure to drop all the links down below because I think what you're doing is amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I really appreciate that you took the time to speak with me. It was a lot of fun. It was a good conversation. And yeah, thank you for organizing this podcast and basically getting the world to know us and many other people who feature on your podcast and their stories and their businesses. I think that's a really noble cause.
Thank you so much, my good sir. And I hope you have an amazing day.
Thank you. You too. Goodbye.
Bye.